Hit the portrait mode. All right, well, whatever. It's fine. We'll figure this out. Not worried. Okay, cool. So I made a little deal with my friends that we would do this live once a week. So I'm trying. Hey, everyone, if you don't know who I am Lauren Petrulo. You should know who I am because you're watching this on probably my Facebook page, or you're my mother. And if you forgot who I am, well, I'm seeing you next week, and that will make for a very awkward reunion. Okay, I've been wanting to share some of this subject specifically that we've been going over a lot inside Mongoose Media about the impact of email and how we look at email in 5 different stages. So level 0 through level 4. This is all about how we call our email marketing from like deliverable to dearly beloved, because like so many references, I will refer to marketing stuff in relationships, because I think that's the easiest way that a lot of individuals who are unfamiliar with marketing can make the connections of introducing an unfamiliar stranger to your brand so that they become wifeyed up and ready to walk down the aisle, spending all the money that weddings cost these days. So I just really want to share with you how we at Mongoose Media approach emails. I think it could be really helpful for you and your brands potentially, or at least to understand how we look at it. If you have an alternative opinion, like please bring it on. I'd love to discuss this further. But I just really want to share with you our 5 levels from level 0 to level 4. I should go the opposite, level 0, ground floor, to level 4 of the way that we approach email. I know a lot of people will approach email and think, oh, I just created the email. Maybe I wrote copy. I wrote a subject line. I designed the dang thing. Cool. That's like 50% of the job. And it's not even the most important part. So the way I'm going to break it down in our 5 stages so that you can go from deliverable, ground floor, because if it doesn't get delivered, what's the point? To the dearly beloved, where you're really marrying this relationship you have with your subscriber audience. The entire purpose of owning and growing an email database, a subscriber list, is so that you can talk to these individuals at scale in a one-to-many fashion, but ultimately bring them to a one-on-one conversation in which they're swiping that credit card and thanking you for your time and attention. So, it's inbox purgatory. We know what's coming in Q1 of 2024 with a lot of these big email providers like Gmail, Yahoo, AOL, to continuously change the rules of the game. It started with iOS 15's update where, open rates, who really cares? They're nothing more than trend lines. Whereas before there was such an important KPI, key performance indicator, on our email success. But as rules change, we get to pivot into being even better marketers. So I'm just going to spill how we try to be the best marketers that we can for our clients and for ourselves. So if it's remotely interesting, cool. Thanks for being here. If you're watching the replay, awesome. Woohoo! It exists. If you're not, whatever, it's okay. It's like, $19 a month for Restream, and I'm trying because now you can go live on Instagram, which is really cool without having a secondary device. And so this is just me kind of creeping and testing different marketing stuff so I don't become old and a dinosaur. Okay. So jumping into level 0, it's all about deliverability, right? If your email doesn't get delivered, all of that time, energy, effort, resources were wasted. And I think this is a subject of email marketing that somehow becomes exclusive to further advanced email marketers, when it's just a topic of conversation that needs to be discussed at a much deeper level. If your email doesn't get delivered, your efforts were wasted. I can't express that further. This whole deliverability dance is like in the dating equivalent of if you are on Tinder or Coffee and Bagel, Meets Bagel, or Match.com, whichever those online profiles are. If you're not even on the app, you're not going to do online dating. You can't. If you didn't show up and download the app and have a profile, it doesn't exist. So in this deliverability dance, I want to go over high level how you can master the art of landing in inboxes and spam folder traps to get out of, because When your email isn't delivered, what often happens is you probably didn't verify your email list, or you have soft or hard bounces. Those are obviously very different elements. And while I'm not going to go super deep into this here, I can at a later point. It's important to know and to track and to consistently evaluate where we are with those soft and hard bounces so that you're not damaging your email sender reputation. And so some of the things that we review with deliverability is, one, you need to make sure you have emails verified. You may have a business that has captured emails for, years. And a lot of times those emails addresses aren't the same. Employees leave their jobs and they've graduated to a new company. So that's no longer their best and most active email. Or potentially you have team members on your email list that are also no longer active. Potentially, depending on your email service provider, your ESP, you have contacts that don't even have emails connected to them. There's a whole host of reasons why you may have emails that are not going out. Fun things like with Apple Mail and other providers, you might have do not disturb mode for some of your email recipients. So they may say, I don't want to receive anything at this time. So you're going to get a soft bounce. Or if you're with Apple Mail, you may have hit the capacity, that person's email may have hit capacity of how much mail they can receive for that day or how much memory they have. That's why there's a whole host of different things between soft bounce and hard bounce. And ways that you can dance around this deliverability is just, for sure, first and foremost, make sure you have a verified email. So you want to make sure that your list is clean, and you can use a host of different tools to verify those emails. Second, you want to, after each send, I call this like brushing your teeth, because you are going to want to do list cleaning maybe twice a year. It's like going to the dentist. You do 2 dentists, you go, cool, get like a sticker and a lollipop, call it a day, but you're still going to want to brush your teeth every day so that you don't have root canals, cavities. With your maintenance, like your daily maintenance, when you send an email, look at the performance of the email. Look at what your deliverability was. Look at how much of that was actually delivered. You could be able to see, depending on your email service provider, if you had hard bounces, soft bounces. And what we recommend at Mongoose Media is always sending at least one did not open, resend. You put all this energy and effort into the email itself, create a new subject line, put it in front of those people that didn't open, and send it again. You're always able to send one more email. I think we're really shy in how often we email, and you should be emailing more. There are very few cases, very few people who I will say that's not true of. So most people, you can send another email and you can send another SMS. It's not going to destroy your brand. And the easiest way to do that is by sending a did not open resend. Sometimes we'll even send it twice. So things of that nature, what allows really strong is, especially if you have an international list, people in South Africa, people in Australia, people in the US are all in different time zones, and they may have do not disturb modes. So sending that email 6 hours later, 12 hours later, 8 hours, whatever that time frame is, allows you to try and hit in their inbox again in the event that they were potentially soft bounce. But you need to look at, every time you send an email, look at how is the deliverability and look at who wasn't able to receive that email. And then start making a plan on how you're going to floss those out so that you can migrate that list to being on a figuring out. Maybe it's this email doesn't exist anymore. And depending on the list size, you can determine if you can reach out to that person personally, update that contact, or you just have them live on a separate list segment that you can do other stuff with it. Let's just be clear. You're going to do more with it. You are not going to delete it. You paid for that lead. You paid for that subscriber. You do not delete that subscriber. There is always impact you can glean from the data. Do not throw away money on data and delete it. Like, that's just silly. Like, silly rabbit tricks are for kids. So what you'll do is you'll put those audience members that where you don't have that information into a separate segment that you can either do remarketing for, because maybe you can do remarketing on Facebook and try to get them to re-opt in and update their profile. Potentially, if you have their home address or phone number, you can reach out with an SMS or a snail mail campaign to encourage them back in to upgrade their profile to the correct email. There's a host of different things that you can do. Potentially, even if it's a really bad one, and you still don't want to delete data, you can build them into a negative lookalike audience. Maybe you can see that this behavior of this individual or whatever it was on that profile is something so grossly incorrect with what you want as an ideal customer. You put them into a segment that you use in a negative lookalike audience against. So anyways, that's all about like this deliverability dance where you want to like make sure that you're igniting a spark of connection, but there's no connection if there's no deliverability. So that's ground floor. Then level 1, which is what we think most people look at as the most important thing for emails, is subject lines. Now, traditionally, that's been totally true. You have a subject line and it dictates whether or not someone's going to open it. It's the trailer to your movie. It's the hook to everything that matters. If no one has interest in what you have to say, they're going to disregard your subject line and disregard all the effort in the email. So level 1 is you need to make sure that you have a sizzling subject line that entices curiosity, intrigue, has a bold claim, and most importantly, is legible. You have character limits, use them. Longer is not better. Brevity wins almost always. You're competing against 200 to 500 emails a day per user. So you use your subject line to stand out amongst the noise, and you need to make sure that you're spending time articulating what this email is in a way that inspires them to open. The whole purpose of your subject line is to get them excited to read more. So if you are neglecting this and putting together some subject line and making it the afterthought of your email creating process, oh honey, your order is reversed. So you obviously level 0 deliverability dance. Level 1 is now you have to have a sizzling subject line. So what you want to do is evaluate and discover like the psychology of what is opening that subject line, using names, using emojis, using curiosity and intrigue, using the subject line and the preview text as a way to tell a story, marry that engagement goes a lot further. Think of the subject line for your profile as your picture and your brief introduction. No one is swiping right if you have a picture that is not flattering whatsoever, and you have a description about yourself as, I don't know, the Antichrist. Maybe that floats some people's boats. I'm not here to judge, but your subject line is the most important piece to determine whether or not someone's going to engage on your content. Now, slight caveat is because of iOS 15, your open rates are ludicrous. They don't make sense. They're not true. So you don't have a true indication of who actually opened because Apple will open your emails on a separate server, send signals that it was open. It's not true. But you can still use those open rates as a trend line, because if you're traditionally trending at 40 to 60% open rates, and then all of a sudden one email has an 80% open rate, you're like, ooh, hot dog. That subject line must have crushed it. There's something very important about that subject line, which increased the trend of what is typical, right? You want atypical results, and you can evaluate your subject line impact by using open rates as a trend. Similarly, if you're used to seeing a 40, 60% trend, and then all of a sudden this one email has a 20% open rate, oh, dear goodness you, what did you write in that subject line that had everyone ignoring you? So I invite you to try different types of subject lines. Again, we do did not opens, resend, same exact email, just a different subject line, maybe paired with a different preview text to encourage someone to take a look. Maybe they ignored you the first time around. Cool. New subject line means you've updated your profile picture on the same dating app you've been on for 6 months. So once you've gotten a subject line that's good, that's intriguing, that's inviting people to open and engage, you can now pass on to level 2, which is clear call to action. If you don't have a clear call to action, you're asking people too much that's going on. Oh my gosh, what's happening? You need your emails to be clear, concise. You're competing for attention. So we call this like the CTA Climax, because if they're not going to take action, if they're not going to have a clear call to action and do what you're asking them to do, then gosh, that was a lot of heavy petting and exhaustion for a waste of time. So in this, you want to have a clear design CTA. You want to have padding around the button. I know it sounds silly that I'm emphasizing this, but if you don't have padding around your button, it's going to blend in and it's not going to be like mobile friendly. You have to remember that most people are on their phones and they're using their thumbs. So make it a super clear call to action. Be honest, be concise, and be simple. Where we see emails fail is when they're doing too many things at once. Again, in this like whole dating world of stuff, imagine that someone has swiped right on you and you said, hey, let's align for a coffee date. But while you're asking for this coffee date, you're also saying like, oh, hey, tell me your astrology sign. Oh, also, what about coming to my sister's wedding? And hey, there's a coffee date, but like, do you want to go get flowers before? And then what about dinner next week? Like, oh my goodness, calm down. Have one clear call to action. Let's grab coffee. Amazing. Let's take the next step further. You have to remember that emails, like so many other pieces of marketing, are to do one piece. They're to sell you on one call to action. Emails don't sell. Emails bring awareness and drive excitement. Your subject line doesn't sell. All it does is it sells the idea of what's behind. And then you see what's even further behind the curtain. So with your content having a clear call to action, you're telling them what page they're going to go on to make the conversion. Your landing page is going to do the sales. Your email is going to do your marketing. So if you don't have a clear call to action, you're going to have a really bad sale. So just make sure that you are investing time so that your call to action and the context of your email has alignment and is super clean. That subject line, level 1, and then a clear call to action, level 2, is really where most people spend their time on email marketing. That's what they think email marketing is. They neglect the deliverability or think about it like once every 5 years when someone is like, duh, oh yeah, I'm just too busy or too technologically challenged to understand what deliverability means. Hire someone, go on Upwork, that's fine. You need to clean your list at least twice a year. And like going to the dentist, you have to brush your teeth and like floss out some of the results in between so that you can have a healthy maintained list. What we call now level 3 is the place where I think most agencies begin their work and freelancers can't. Level 3 is this type of email optimization that requires further understanding of how email marketing works, how email laws are changing, how emails are optimized. For a lot of people, they're okay with just sending. Subject line, email, cool. Clear call to action, send, buy, done. Moving on to the next thing. I've got a to-do list that's longer than my CVS receipt, so I'm not even going to be looking at all the other ways to improve email to make the most out of my efforts. Well, when you're working with agency partners or you're working with email specialists specifically versus someone who's just doing one of everything, this is where you're going to start paying attention. Because obviously they're focused on deliverability. But also going into like the email optimization part is where you're like, cool, I'm getting what I'm paying for versus just doing what exists and what works. So in parts of email optimization, this is like our longest level. We call this like the email ecstasy. You have to ensure that you have accessibility, structure, and all the legal stuff that goes into email. Email is becoming increasingly more regulated. Can you say that? Increasingly more? It's becoming increasingly regulated in the United States. GDPR, California, like GDPR in UK, California's laws. There's 6 states in the United States. If you didn't know this, you have over 100,000 customers. You have to do a double opt-in. The laws are constantly evolving for more privacy and consumer protection. If you are neglecting paying attention to these, you can find yourself plagued with very expensive fines. No, thank you. You need to make sure that you have things in place to ensure a proper email. Things like having an address in the footer, having a clear way to unsubscribe. Those we should all know, but there's a whole list of those rules. You can Google. I'm not here to, pretend I'm a lawyer because I'm not. This is not legal advice. But I am recommending that, like, in all of this foreplay of getting someone to an email, like, you need to make sure you're using protection. And ways that you can build your email for success is making sure that if you have an image, you have alt image text, because not everyone can see the image. Not all images load. You need to tell the user what the image is. You need to tell the email provider what the image is saying. And legally, you need to have accessibility that does that. Other things to be considerate of is, like, where I think a lot of people neglect, and this is where like only like email specialists and agency partners really go into, is how are you testing your emails before sending it out? Like I said, level 1, level 2, subject line, clear call to action. I did it. I sent it. Have a good day. Wait, hold your horses. Before you actually start sending, I invite you to create test emails at all the different main email providers: Outlook, AOL, Yahoo, Gmail, and everything in between. Create that Mongo, like Lauren testing email at gmail.com, Lauren testing email at yahoo.com. Create those inboxes to which you can test and see how your email lands in those different boxes. How do they show up on Chrome? How do they show up on Firefox? How do they show up on Apple Mail? If you're not looking at those different ways, you're just assuming, okay, everyone is on an iPhone. I'm going to ignore most of the people in the world using Android. Look, I can't stand those green bubble message people, but they make up a huge part of our clients' email list. So you can't neglect it. You got to, in level 3, your email optimization, you got to make these test emails. You got to send it out. How does it look on mobile? How does it look on desktop? How does it look across different providers? I know it's annoying. I know it's extra work, but it can make a huge difference to your bottom line. You can't put in all the energy and say, I sent an email and it went out, and then it looks terrible on Apple Mail. Apple users end up spending more than most other phone providers. Why would you neglect some of the wealthiest customers on your subscriber list because you're being lazy? Not here to judge, just here to explain how we at Mongoose Media approach email and things that are really hard to expect of a marketing coordinator or an individual freelancer or someone who's just doing email alongside 1,000 other things you've assigned for them. But if you're giving them a clear list of instructions, these are the 5 levels in which we do it. And the email ecstasy, like that's mission critical. Obviously, if it's not delivered, it doesn't matter. But if you're not paying attention to the components that make a successful email and you're just putting it together, slapping a sticker on it saying it's done and out the door, cool. Accept it and don't complain. And just be aware that like you know, okay is good enough for you. Not for us. We're an agency though. We have team members. We have a host of different departments that go into this, right? We have dedicated members to email specifically that other team members are like, ooh, that I know what you talk about. But this level of conversation, these different like 5 levels is something at least we try to make sure everyone at Mongoose Media understands so that our marketing automation team is set up for success in doing these different pieces. So you want to make sure that your emails are effective. And the best way for email efficacy in our level 3 email ecstasy is to make sure you have the structure set up. It's great to read on mobile. Hat tip I got from Ralph Burns, which I couldn't believe I'd never thought of this. As someone on dark mode myself, see how does it look on dark mode? Literally, he told me his email team was doing this, and I was like, wow, brilliant. Such an easy review. I started looking at some of the emails that I have in dark mode. Wow, those images look terrible. Like, oh gosh. So that's cool. That was something that I learned like literally yesterday that we'll be implementing. So yeah, check desktop, check mobile, check dark mode, and then check across those different inboxes before actually hitting send. It's an extra 10 minutes of work that can make, potentially $10,000 worth of difference to your bottom line. And you'll start to see that you're not having to do this extensively. If you find that you're having problems with AOL emails or like the Apple emails, you can optimize and set up your emails for success. So once you fix it, you've mostly fixed it. It's not having to reinvent the wheel every single time. It's just making sure if you're pushing a wheel, you've got the most constructed wheel for success. Last but not least, sorry, this is going so long. I thought this would be 5 minutes, grossly underestimated, grossly guessed wrong. But the last stage for us is level 4. We call this like the smart conditions and data amplification. In this segment, this is where you're actually going to like have your dearly beloved moment, right? You went from deliverable to now we're married. Emails, you may have a list that's 1,000 large, 50,000 large, 200,000 large, 1,000,000 plus emails, right? Whatever size that list is, you're sending emails out in a one-to-many fashion. You're saying, hey, this content is going to this segment. Enjoy. What we want to do in level 4, smart conditions and data amplification, is the whole point of where we're turning email beyond just a marketing play of encouraging someone to get to our destination site for sales, whether it's a booked call, a product to add to cart, whatever your clear call to action is from your level 2 CTA Climax. You want to do this in a smart way so that your effort, you spend 10 to 15% more effort for 50 to 100% more money. So if you're paying attention, this is the easiest part to introduce, even if you're just doing levels 1 and 2, right? Subject line and the actual like clear call to action and context of the email. Doing level 4 smart conditioning and data amplification means that you are looking at relevance. You are able to now seduce the person that opened your email, that engaged with your email and made a call to action, and getting them to finally say, I do. How you can do this. Email programs are sophisticated. If you have a unified email program, sorry, sipping a little, a unified email program of SMS and emails connected together, someone who clicks on that call to action is like, hey, I would love to book a call with you, Lauren. Oh my gosh, you're so amazing. I saw you in Inc. magazine. Total fangirl. Okay, that's just me, or at least what my mom says, right? So let's pretend. But say I invite you to jump on my calendar. Hey, tell me how you use Q5, like I discussed in Inc. magazine alongside Meta business executives, right? I invite you to get on my calendar. Tell me how Q5 was for your business. I can know from the button that you went to my calendar page. And then I can also know that you didn't get on my calendar, but you were on the page. How simple and effective do you think it would be if person clicked on button, made it to destination page, but did not complete the action? How likely is it that they would follow up if I sent a text message 15 minutes later? Hey girl, Lauren here. Saw that you were creeping my calendar. I assume you have something to say about Q5. Would love to talk more. Have a second? I can now turn that one-to-many conversation where I sent it to everyone on our list, talking about Q5 and asking for opinions on what you're doing this Q5, to a one-to-one conversation automatically where it provides the conversation loop to open and turn that one of 10,000 plus subscribers into a personal conversation where my whole goal is to get on the phone with them. Why wouldn't I spend 10 to 15% more time and energy to provide a more relevant next step conversation if they've done almost everything I needed them to do before getting wifeyed up with me? They showed up. They bought the dress. They're walking down the aisle. Now I'm being asked to give the vows and they went silent. It's way easier to say, oh, hey, why don't I go first? Or starting that conversation so that we can finish this matrimony and we can do the conversation, which is what the whole purpose of that email was. So using smart conditions and data amplification allows you to take the data that you're able to see inside your email service provider, your SMS provider, and take it to the next step. Send them an email, send them an SMS, follow up for Pete's sake, and have the conversation so that you can push them past being a bride showing up down the aisle to your actual wifey engaged. Now we're sharing last names and having a whole party and dance together. You want your emails to have your audience race, like their heart racing, to be excited for what you have to say. But if you don't get that delivered, they'll never see it. If you don't have a subject line that inspires them to open, they'll never read it. If you don't have a clear call to action and context, what was the point? You wasted their time. You butthead, I'm busy. If you're not doing email optimization and setting up your emails for success, you are opening the door for a floodgate of danger. And then last but not least, if you're leaving the smart conditions and the follow-up of the 10 to 15% more extra work because you're lazy on the table, well, for shame for you, because 10 to 15% more work can lead to 50 to 100% more money. And that's the way that you can have an impactful email marketing strategy. And that's our 5 levels of what we find how we provide email seduction to really connecting with our audiences, with our emails, and ensuring that we are doing the best that we can for the recipient of the email and for our clients. Anyways, 30 minutes. Hope that was remotely useful. If you ended up catching the replay or watch it, hey, thank you for listening to my little rant. Anyways, happy Friday. Happy end of the year. This is Lauren on the last working day of 2023. Ciao.